Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. All the remaining cards of Voyage to Sunken City were revealed yesterday, and also the full core set changes were revealed yesterday, so we finally know what cards are going to rotate out of the core set and what cards are going to be brought in, so now we know all the cards that are available after the standard rotation next week. So in this video I'm going to take a look at the current top meta decks. This is basically the framework that I used for my last meta report on the top 14 decks in the meta, but this time I have checked all of the cards that are in these decks and checked which ones of those are rotating out. So here, marked with those crosses, yeah, Libram Paladin. Libram Paladin is one of the top decks at the moment, and Libram Paladin is going to cease to exist because all the Librams are going away. Elder Attendants, Librams of Wisdom, Elder Truth Seekers, Librams of Hope, Lady Liadrin, the whole Libram stuff is going away. So, okay, Libram Paladin is not going to be a deck after the rotation, but Paladin is going to keep a bunch of other cards still, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that once we get to buff Paladin. Another top deck at the moment is Aggro Shaman, and Aggro Shaman, Doomhammer is going to stay, as is Rock by the Weapon, so there was also some speculation on whether these cards are going to be staying in the core set or not, because Cagemat's Custodian, the card that allows you to tutor for Doomhammer, is going away, Stormstrike is going away, so Doomhammer is losing a bunch of support. However, Elementals, there are still plenty of Elementals around, so Elemental Shaman can potentially be rebuilt for the next expansion, even though it's going to lose some tools like Gaia Worm. And probably this Doomhammer approach is not going to be strong enough without the Custodian, without Stormstrike, but we still have a whole bunch of Elementals, we still have Lilipad Lurkers, Granite Forgeborn. So yeah, Elemental Shaman, potentially rebuildable, Aggro Shaman, unlikely to be using Doomhammer, even though Doomhammer is going to stay. Then an interesting one, Ramp Druid, one of the current meta tyrants. Yeah, Kazaku-san. Oh, Kazaku-san. Well, Kazaku-san is going to stay in the format. Malygos is going to stay, Raid Boss Onyxia, Scale of Onyxia, Wild Heart Cuff. The important thing that I was really waiting for the core set news was like, is Druid going to keep Ramp? And yes, Druid is going to keep Ramp. Innovate is going to stay. Wild Growth is going to stay. Druid is losing Lightning Bloom and it's losing Overgrowth. So some of the ramp ability of Ramp Druid is going away. And, well, more than half the cards of the deck are going away. All of its early game, these card draw synergies, some of this stuff that it has, just all going away. But the really important core pieces are staying. There's still enough ramp in the format. Innovate, Wild Growth, Wild Heart Cuff. That's still enough ramp to play a ramp deck. We still have Kazaku-san. So even though the details have to be reinvented, the hard core of Ramp Druid is still going to exist. And then the top OTK deck at the moment, which is the Owl TK Warlock. And Owl TK Warlock, yeah, it's going to be viable, potentially still in the next expansion as well, because it's losing a few cards, Armor Vendor, Tour Guide, Artificer, Backfire. Backfire is a pretty big loss because Backfire is such a great card draw piece in this one. And School Spirits. School Spirits is currently one of the essential pieces of the combo, but it's not mandatory because Warlock has access to other cards like Hellfire. One of the things that I also want to see when the core set changes were revealed was whether Hellfire is going to stay or not, and it's going to stay, which means that there is a valid alternative to School Spirits. Owl TK, you can still pull it off, it's not losing that many pieces. This is a potential OTK deck, also for the next year. Then there's Face Hunter, and oh boy, Face Hunter will have some reinvention to do, because, okay, the Face Hunter, nowadays Face Hunter is largely using buffs in the early game. You play some of the strongest 1-drops, some of the strongest 2-drops, then you have Doggy Biscuits, you have Ramming Mounts. You're trying to use those buffs, and then you're trying to finish off with spells or with some beasts. Boson Ragnar, Trampling Rhino. A lot of this stuff is going to be broken by the rotation, because all the current 1-drops apart from Iron Deep Trog are going away, but Doggy Biscuit, Ramming Mount, they are still going to be staying. There's still some meaningful damage spells, like Aim Shot for example, Piercing Shot. Kodo Bane is still here, you can still draw some stuff from your deck. Bronzong Wrangler is going to be here, but no Trampling Rhino and no Volvetinger for that, so it might not make the cut in the future deck. There are some potential 1 and 2 drops coming in the new set in the rotation, so I believe Face Hunter can be rebuilt. Maybe it's not going to be built around beasts. Maybe it's going to be built on some other minions, but yeah. Those buffs are still going to remain, a bunch of damage spells are going to remain, so Face Hunter can be rebuilt. We have the technology. On the surface of it, Beast Hunter is losing a lot less than Face Hunter, I mean just a few cards. But those cards mean that Beast Hunter needs to do some serious re-evaluation, because Petting Zoo, Readiness Rifle are going away. So the only way that the current Beast Hunter deck can actually build a board early in the game, and some of the biggest flexibility defensively it has early in the game, that's going away now. And also Guardian Animals is going away, Jewel of Nesot is going away. One of those ways that you can get value from your deck, and one of the main ways that you can get value once you have lost some of the minions, they are going away from standard format. So Beast Hunter really needs to evaluate whether it has pieces left to rebuild. Because while a whole bunch of cards remain, then the core idea of how you win a game with this deck will have to change. Control Warrior is one of the decks that I'm really afraid of in the new expansion. I mean, afraid of facing that. Because yeah, Control Warrior is losing a few tools, and some of these tools are quite okay. Bulwark Fascinat, okay. Minefield, Bladestorm, some of that removal. But Control Warrior is also getting something like Bash is coming to the new core set, for example, replacing Sword and Board, Minefield kind of stuff. Control Warrior also still has a lot of removal tools, and well, nowadays Control Warrior only needs one win condition. That's Kazakusan. So yeah, Control Warrior, pack it up with removal, put Kazakusan in, it doesn't lose too much at all. This is going to be a scary deck in the new expansion. And about that Paladin, while Libram Paladin is going away because there are no more Librams, look at the losses of Buff Paladin. Orc Merchant, Neophyte, Hand of Adal, Blessing of Authority. That's it. This deck is losing very few cards. So Buff Paladin, even though Blessing of Authority is such a nice card in many situations, but it doesn't look scary at all for Buff Paladin. Buff Paladin looks really, really strong. Definitely one of the winners of the old school of decks coming into the new expansion. Meanwhile, Nesot Paladin is also losing a little bit more, especially because it's losing Nesot. Yeah, that kind of defeats the purpose then. But there's also going to be some cards that Nesot Paladin is going to be keeping, and maybe there's some way to build something with dragons. There are a bunch of dragons coming. Although Red Scale Dragon Tamer, the Dragon Tutor Paladin, had is sadly going away just as Paladin is getting some new dragons back. But yeah, I'm a little uncertain about the future of this type of secrets at the start and then bigger stuff coming in Paladin, because Oh My Yogg is going away. You still have this secret core, you still have some of these very strong mid-range things, but I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. On the other hand, Reno is coming back to the core set, and then you have stuff like Lightforge Cariel, and you have Reno, and Paladin loves lots of expensive legendary cards anyway, so maybe you just build the mid-range Paladin deck as a Highlander deck. That's totally possible. And quest decks are likely here to stay. Quest Hunter is losing very few cards after all. I mean, Overwhelm, Bola Shot. Yeah, some of these cards required the opponent to have minions in order for you to progress your quest, but Quest Hunter is getting one new damage spell in return. Losing 2, getting 1, just borderline. Is it going to be strong enough? We'll have to wait and see. At least at the second expansion of the year, Quest Hunter should be up and running again. Then Mini Mage. Oh, we hardly knew you. Mini Mage was just added to Quest Hunter. It's a core set card, and it's one of the core set cards that's rotating out, so that was going away. I just realized that I hadn't crossed off Professor Slate. Professor Slate is going away too. Yeah, okay, so some losses there. And that Readiness Rifle is going away, but we still have the possibility to use Drektar. We still have a bunch of damage spells, so Quest Hunter not out of the game yet. Maybe there is a reason Blizzard did a lot of the promotional graphics using Aggro Druid as an example, because Aggro Druid is not exactly losing a whole lot. Adorable Infestation, Orc Merchant, Bonjour Brawler. The biggest loss here is the loss of that Arbor up. And that might be a problem. Druid is not getting a similar board-wide buff. I mean, we have a couple of buffs still that were not good enough to be used, so maybe they will be substituted, Arbor up will be substituted by those. But yeah, there's still Razor Main Battle Guard, of course. There's still a way to summon some cheap taunt minions. There's still Oracle of Elune, you can still get all of those copies. There's still Drektar. Many of the things that make Aggro Druid strong are still here. The buff thing is the only thing that really needs to be solved, but yeah, Aggro Druid, if you thought you were going to play a control game, Aggro Druid coming right at you. Aggro Shadow Priest is also still here. It's losing a few of these early game cards. Freshman, Orc Merchant, Tour Guide. Tour Guide probably hurts the most out of these, because what made Tour Guide so good in Aggro Shadow Priest is that you can just play it, and then you have access to that 0-cost hero power in the very early game, and then at that point you can still use that to control the board, save your own minions, then you can jam the Void that's Attendant a little bit later, and boom, boom, boom. And now without Tour Guide, it might be a little bit more difficult for Aggro Shadow Priest to retain that board control early on, but overall, most of its toolkit is still intact. And then there's the other aggressive Druid deck. Aggro Druid is losing a few cards, Beast Druid is losing a few cards. Is Beast Druid losing too much? Is it losing so much that it cannot retain its identity? Because while it's only losing 4 cards, 2 of them are Arbor and Umbral Owl. So your main buff, which really makes your board scary, and an Umbral Owl. Combination of Oracle of Elune, Umbral Owl, just getting all those owls in. That has been so strong for Beast Druid. They still have Frustrate the Matriarch, but that's not quite the same now, is it? And it also reduces the consistency a lot because you lose half of your multiplication targets from Oracle. So we'll see how it goes, but numerically, Beast Druid and Aggro Druid are not losing many cards. And typically in these very aggressive decks, losses can be replaced fairly easily. It might be easier for Aggro Druid than Beast Druid though, because for Beast Druid that Umbral Owl swing turn has been quite important. And finally the best deck in the game, Burn Shaman, also not losing that many cards. Lightning Bloom is gone, Studies, Landslide, Fireheart, Serpentine Portal. There is a new direct damage spell in the upcoming expansion. Maelstrom Portal is coming back to the core set to replace Landslide, so Burn Shaman will have another AoE spell, it will have another direct damage spell. Okay, what more does it need? Primordial Studies has been very effective in this archetype, loss of that is going to hurt. Yeah, Burn Shaman is not losing that much, so we can see that decks like Burn Shaman, Beast Druid, Aggro Druid, Buff Paladin, Elemental Shaman, all of these can potentially be rebuilt even after the rotation with quite little effort, whereas some of the other decks are losing a lot more. So even if many of the new cards are promoting a little bit slower meta, then there's still quite a lot of aggressive power left from the current meta, even after the rotation. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please click the like button, subscribe to my channel, and check out my Twitch channel.